All righty then.
We'll say it says we're live.
We are? Oh, my bad. Good evening, everybody. We're glad you're here tonight.
All righty then.
Now that we think I got all the kinks worked out with these new microphones.
His computer's kinky.
We're finishing up Mark 5 tonight. It's been an interesting role.
Are you glitching?
Yeah, texted my wife, let her know we're back live.
Yeah,
She said you disconnected it. I said, well, I just restarted it because I realized the microphone volume was down, not the computer.
And what did we learn?
What a wonderful day it is.
It is. Well, every day this side of the dirt is a good day.
So let's get back to what we're trying to talk about. Old Kirk. My opinion, which is, of that it is opinion. I feel like that person that shot him was under oppression, possessed, whatever you want to call it. They say the last three shootings that have happened have been of the left side.
Everybody is going to have an opinion, and let's just be honest. Nobody wants to claim, like that was one of our guys, or especially when they screw up.
Yeah.
The thing that I always go back to is, first off, we have to stop this left-right garbage. Now, don't get me wrong. We all have our own opinions, our own beliefs, our own views. But us constantly infighting is not going to help.
Right.
Now, one thing that I will say, when it comes to the, well, it's your side that did it or my side or whatever the case may be. Let's just run through the numbers. The people on the right within the United States own as many guns as the military. If the right was the problem, the left would not be there.
Right.
Okay.
Wait, right or correct?
I believe correct would be the word you're looking for.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that to be hyperbole or anything like that. It's simply now, and I'm also not claiming that there aren't nut jobs on the right. The stupid thing is, like I said, nobody wants to claim, though, the when somebody does something stupid like that, but the downside is when that insurance executive was shot, there was a group of people that were proud about that.
Yeah.
Okay. When Charlie Kirk was shot, there was a group of people proud about that. Now, I'm not saying all of the people, because I know some people on the political left that's like, hey, this ain't right. Now, I am going to, don't get me wrong, I've been kind of vocal on this. If you've spent the last 8 years demonizing and dehumanizing everybody on the right or everybody who has a different political opinion than you,
time in the day.
You don't understand cause and effect.
No.
If you don't, this is what leads up to this stuff, and like I said, and that's kind of where I'm at with the whole both sides argument. This isn't a both sides issue. There are not people on the right executing people on the left with any sort of regularity. The only thing, and I'm not sure entirely who got the Minnesota couple. All right. I'm not sure who did that, be it right or left. I have a hard time thinking it was somebody on the right because it happened like the day after these and they were Democrat lawmakers. They voted against their party. They voted with Republicans, so I have a hard time believing that a Republican went and shot them for that. but whatever. I don't know. It just, the math on that ain't mathing.
Yeah.
Yes, there was an individual, I guess it's been a year or so ago, maybe not quite that long. You remember hearing about Pizzagate?
Vaguely.
Okay, apparently somebody got it in their head that this pizza place was doing what they were accused of, and he went in there with a firearm. I don't think anybody got hurt. I might be wrong on that. But when you get right down to it, the only real instance that people can kind of bring up is, well, what about January 6th? Okay, what about it?
Yeah.
The one person that got killed was a protester.
Yeah.
Now my understanding is that it was a female and she was unarmed. That doesn't work in y'all's favor.
No.
Negative. Right. But I posted a video earlier. It was with Dennis Prager. I love him. But somebody asked him, name me a time worse than January 6th. He's like, any weekend in Chicago. And he's right. Any weekend in Chicago is more violent than January 6th, hands down.
Yeah.
Other than, and I'm not trying to defend what happened on January 6th. There were some individuals who acted poorly. Yes. Some of these individuals need to get jailed or whatever the appropriate punishment is. Yes. But however many people were there, 2,500, 5,000, let's just call it 5,000. If 5,000 people showed up at two buildings intent on wreaking havoc, one person lost their life, and what was everybody else? Like cuts, bruises, scrapes. I mean, there wasn't even like a riot that broke out.
No.
The Summer of Love in Seattle had far more going wrong with it than this event. And again, I'm not saying that people didn't act stupid on that day. They definitely did. But that's the one event that people can point at. January 6th. Well, tell me about all the school shootings.
Yeah.
All right. And okay, well, you might say, well, a lot of these aren't politically or ideologically motivated. Tell me about the specific Catholic and Christian school shootings done by people who don't believe in that. Now, let's see, the Nashville one was trans, I believe. Like I said, it's just that there is a problem. And I don't want to demonize the left, but this radicalization, I posted something within the last couple of days. I am going to blame the left for this. You have taught an entire generation that their feelings must be valid because they feel them. And if they feel like they have been attacked or oppressed, then it must be true.
Right.
And if it's true, then somebody must have done that. So somebody else has already aggressed you first. And instances like the Charlie Kirk shooting and some of these other things, that is the direct result. These people feel justified by what they're doing because they feel like somebody like Charlie Kirk was standing against them, or had already attacked them.
Hurt their feelings.
Right. And the simple truth is, I know not everybody liked Charlie Kirk. I get that. A lot of us doesn't, like I don't like a lot of people, period. Like I'm not even impressed by myself on a lot of days. Well, I mean, I don't. A lot of times I don't even like myself. So, but I can't think of an individual out there that I would want to go shoot. Now, I can't say that I have never felt that way, but through Christ, I don't wish ill on anybody.
No.
The individual that shot Charlie, I don't wish him ill.
No, he
If
needs help for sure.
Well, and that's where I'm at now. That does not mean that I'm, well, I forgive you and go on about your life as though nothing ever happened. No, you still owe a debt to society.
Yeah.
And I'm not wishing that you're in jail for a long time. Now I do remember when the Heath shooting happened.
Yeah.
I have signed more than one petition to keep him from getting parole. I don't know if I still would or not. My problem is it's not about forgiveness. The simple truth is if you do the crime, you do the time. And Jerry Clower used to go on that if the punishment for crime was not severe enough to deter the crime, then you've accomplished nothing. Let's say, you're a kid.
Yeah.
And your mom just built a great big pan full of your favorite cookie.
Yummy.
And told you to leave them alone under no uncertain terms. And you went in there and you grabbed one without permission. And her response was, don't do that again. And that's the end of it. And you go and do that again. And her response is, stop that. The punishment for the crime is not enough to deter the crime. In Jerry Clower's story, he said, well, ain't none of y'all ever stole a tea cake from my mama and got caught. Yeah. He said, I'm a grown man. I don't even buy one at the store today that I don't call and ask her permission first. The punishment for crime has to be enough to deter crime. And it's not that I'm advocating for like the death penalty or whatever, because for a lot of these people, life holds no meaning for them.
Yeah.
So to take that life away from them, it's not really punishment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
On the other hand, with the death penalty, it severely reduces repeat offenders. And that's, like I said, I don't wish the individual, and I know there's speculation about more than one person being involved, and however many people are involved, I don't wish them ill. They need help. That this is not normal treatment. This is not how you deal with people that you disagree with. But unfortunately, we've got a whole culture that through their own, I don't even really know how to say it, through their own perceptions, they are convinced that of a moral superiority. And it's not just that they feel morally superior, or at least, and maybe I'm speaking for them. That's the interpretation I get. But that they get to determine what is moral and what isn't. And it's taking narcissism to a totally different level. Because it's like next level idolatry, but you're putting yourself as God, where you're deciding what is moral, then who pays the price for not fitting that description. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who are Christian or claim to be, that's between them and God.
Yes, definitely.
But there are a lot of people who would say that they profess to be the faith that will go around like, well, this person's going to hell, and that, that's not our job.
No,
it is not our job. It is our job to tell people the gospel.
God didn't want to give us that responsibility.
We're not responsible enough for that responsibility.
You want us to bring people to Him.
And that's the thing. And, I know I'm rambling here, but one of the most misquoted verses of the Bible says, and atheists use it, what happened to, judge not lest ye be judged. Go back and find that scripture, do a Google search if you don't know what it is. When you find that line, back up to where he starts talking about that and then read past that line until he changes the subject. How can you hold judge not lest you be judged in the same subject tense as you will know them by their fruits? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There is judgment that comes around. As believers, there is a certain amount of judgment that we are supposed to do. You know, it's not for us to determine if somebody is, shall we say, good or bad. It's for us to determine how close do we get to that individual. You know, there are people called to prison ministry. Great. I'm not knocking that.
No.
It is necessary. The simple truth is that not everybody, you know, like we all fall short of the glory of God.
Yes, we do.
So in that aspect, none of us are better than the other.
Right.
But to think that there is no such thing as objective or ultimate morality, or absolute morality, the problem, and I get not everybody likes the idea that morals are absolute, that something is bad under all circumstances. I get that. The problem is that you're leaving yourself an out. If you are an individual that truly believes that morality is completely subjective to the individual, okay, that there is no such thing as moral absolutes. Picture in your mind one of the most heinous things that you can think of, be it murder, rape, whatever. And don't get me wrong, do not misquote me on this. But if there are no moral absolutes, then there exists a set of circumstances and scenarios where the most heinous thing is acceptable under the right circumstances. In my view, where there is moral absolutes, there are certain things that are wrong under every circumstance. You know, the shedding of innocent blood to take a life, not in self-defense, not someone who's trying to kill you. And for that matter, you know, let's get back on the death penalty aspect. Somebody who is facing death row, they brought that on themselves by their own actions, you know, and generally you have to kill somebody to get that one. Right. But a carjacking, and you screw up and you do a murder, that's the shedding of innocent blood. You know, you're the one that instigated that. The Bible speaks against that. And it's another thing I got from Prager. You know, somebody asked him, like, how you feel about, you know, thou shalt not kill. He's like, well, that's a misinterpretation. Thou shalt not murder. You don't take innocent blood. It's a little different if somebody's trying to kill you, you know, because that's in Hebrew, those are two different circumstances.
Right.
But I am rambling bad.
So you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with Mark 5?
A lot.
Demonic, I mean, the Legion, the guy had Legion, or they called him Legion. He had so many,
Is a Roman legion 100 or 1,000?
That's the thing I never said.
Well,
he
didn't say how many was in there, right. But check this out. That's why I like the internet age.
Back when we were kids, we didn't have this. We had dial-up.
Right.
Actually,
we predate dial-up.
Yeah, we're older than Google.
All right. According to the internet, which we all know never lies, the size of a Roman legion varied over time, with the standard becoming around 5,000 soldiers. Now, I'm not saying that that's how many demons were within this man, because legion simply means, it's not a couple and it's not a few. It's a greater number than that. But at the time, there was a such thing as a Roman legion. And to use that word would make sense to people from that time period that this ain't just a couple.
No,
This ain't five or six. This
several.
is thousands.
A lot.
But
what's crazy is, as I'm doing the research, it says Mark, Luke, and Matthew. Is the context? Matthew has a story, Luke has a story. Matthew said that there was 2 demons possessed.
Okay.
But it actually says in the notes here that mention only one of man, or Mark and Luke mention only one of man. Evidently, one more dominant than the other. So if you hear that he had more possession than the other one, so God concentrated on this one, the legion, because he was more possessed, I guess. Because I got to do more research. This is in Mark. It's
okay. I'm in Mark.
Yeah, well, it's in my study notes. It says,
right.
I don't know if you have study notes on yours.
Not on this particular app, no. So start that all over again.
Okay, it says when you're talking about the description of the Terran in his account, 2 demon-possessed men.
Okay, so there were 2 separate men.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it says that Mark and Luke mention only one of the men.
Right.
Evidently, one was more dominant than the other. So we're talking to another friend of ours tonight, and he dropped his kid off. Maybe it was a caretaker. Maybe it was somebody that was there with him that got possessed with him.
Right.
So we're sitting there, when me and my wife was talking, we just like, we don't know, because one was evidently more important than the other. Which, I don't think God works that way, but I feel like.
Okay, yeah, Matthew does say that there was 2 men.
Yeah, Matthew 8:28, 29 area. Yeah. He heals 2 men with a demon. So, I mean, I know it's possible to be possessed by several different things,
Well, the downside is and I'm just glancing over it, right. But the Matthew account does not say that he chose one over the other.
Right, but that's what the notes say. So I'm trying to
yeah.
So who? So where? So evidently Matthew's before Mark. So why? The question is why?
Okay, well, no. Matthew is before Mark as far as where the Gospels are.
Right.
But Mark is the eldest Gospel. It was actually, to our knowledge, written first.
So where did the second one come from?
Honestly, there's no
was it
reason.
The one that was helping him stay in chains, or
from what I'm seeing so far, and I didn't catch that while digging through this. I'm glad you brought that up. Reading the Matthew account, other than mentioning there were 2 men there, anytime it refers to, when Jesus speaks and then the demons speak, it never says that it came from one or the other. It says they.
Yeah, they.
So there is no scriptural reason to believe that it just came from one man.
Yeah.
And let's face it, if the Almighty is standing there in the flesh and he calls you to speak, when he says demons speak, demons are going to speak regardless of their location.
Yeah. And what's even funnier, I think, is the disciples stayed in the boat. You think it's because they were scared?
Well, we touched on this.
Don't get context of it.
We touched on this a little bit during the last podcast. Yeah. The demons knew who Christ was.
Yeah.
Okay. When he approached, they knew him and asked, "Why are you here to torment us?" So they knew that he had authority over them. The disciples were in the boat during the storm when Jesus walked on water and calmed the storm. And after seeing this, who is this guy that even the waves and the weather obeys? They were present with him on the regular and still had a hard time understanding. But when Jesus shows up at this town that I will never be able to pronounce properly,
Starts with a G.
right?
Gardenius.
And that depends on which translation you're reading.
Right.
But once the demon possessed men, when they realized who stepped off the boat, they recognized Jesus as the Son of the Almighty. He hadn't came out there and spoke with them yet. They knew him on sight. That should tell us a lot about where our faith is at.
Yeah.
The demons know Jesus better than we do.
Yeah.
That is pathetic.
I agree.
You know, and like I said, I don't say this in
even the devil
any more condemnation for you than for me.
Even the devil know who he is.
Yes.
It's like this may or may not be the last episode for this. I'm not sure yet, but
there is so much content here that
I mean, you got the lady that just touched his, was it his robe?
His
clothing or whatever?
I want to say that also varies in translation. Some say the hem of his garment, some say his cloak.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to think that, you know what, he's trapezing around Israel. It's not exactly a mild weathered place. You know, now he was wearing a cloak, and we've seen depictions from that time frame, both of the Jewish dress and of the Roman dress. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he wasn't wearing like 15 articles of formal clothing.
No, he wasn't.
But he was obviously wearing something. Now, whether it was his cloak, whether it was, you know, like the hem of, I don't know what they call basically the whole covering robe.
Yeah.
You know, I know that some of the depictions from back then, you know, like you have basically a full length robe, and then you might have like a cloak you would tie around your shoulders, for, you know, because let's face it, you know, if you haven't experienced this, talk to somebody who served in like Afghanistan or Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be 90 degrees at night and they're sitting around a bonfire freezing.
Yep.
Not that 90 degrees is cold, but when it's 120 and 130 during the day, 90 degrees is a 40-degree temperature change.
It's like walking for a walking cooler.
Yeah. You know, it's not that 90 is cold, but in comparison to what the daytime is, it's cold.
Yeah.
You know.
But she touched she bled for 12 days.
Years.
12 years or whatever. There's number 12 in there somewhere.
Yes.
And she was healed just by touching his clothing.
Well, there's more to the story than that. My understanding is, and don't get me wrong, I'm not super well versed in things of Jewish culture, of all the laws and bylaws and whatnot.
Right.
But if you go back into Leviticus, where everything is wrong, if you were bleeding, you had to be outside the city walls.
Right.
That counted when women were menstruating also. You know, if there was blood or bodily fluids and whatnot, you had to isolate yourself away from everybody else. This woman, who it never tells us what her issue was other than it was an issue of blood.
Yeah.
You could make the assumption, well, if she had an open wound that was bleeding, after 12 years, they would have probably simply cut it off or cauterized it. So I'm willing to believe it was female stuff.
It did
You
say
know.
discharge of blood, so that makes sense. It wasn't an open wound or nothing.
Right. But
That makes
Jesus was in town in a crowd.
Yeah.
This woman broke the regulations to go touch him. You know, now you could call it the law or whatever the case may be, but if that isolation was still in effect at the time that this took place, she broke whatever it was that, you know, she not only went in town, but she went into the crowd. Like you weren't supposed to touch people if
No.
you were bleeding. So in both the Luke account and the Mark account, she didn't go up to him and, you know, ask to be healed or anything
She
like
just
that.
touched him.
She touched him and
Clothing.
never said a word.
No.
And Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" And the disciples looked around and they couldn't find anybody guilty. And they're like, well, everybody's touching. We're all like they were in a tight enough group that they couldn't tell who had actually touched him.
Right.
This lady pushed her way through people to get to him to touch his garment. You know, and as far as we know, Jesus never like fully said like, well, she touched me on the arm. As far as we knew, he only knew that he got touched because he felt the power leave him.
Yeah.
You know, so he very well could have only touched his garment. But when Jesus isn't convinced and he like, no, who touched me? She came forth and told the truth that she knew as soon as she saw him that if she only touched his garment, that she would be healed. You know, like I chewed on our tails a few moments ago about the demons know Jesus better than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this woman's faith. Where's ours in comparison?
Talking about faith again.
Yeah.
Why's it all gonna be about faith?
Everything hinges on it.
Yeah.
Everything hinges
All
on
you
it.
need is faith.
You know, what does Paul tell us? We are saved by grace through faith.
Yep.
You know, there's no amount of ritual that you can do, no amounts of adherence to the law or the codes or doing what your church says, or none of that is going to get you to heaven.
No.
You know, grace through faith. It is a free gift that you have to accept to pay for a debt that we can't pay. Paid for by somebody who didn't earn it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like a song I know called "Grace Wins Every Time."
Weird, isn't it? But if you really want to be humbled, compare our own faith to the faith of that lady. Every time something comes up that we're not planning or we're not expecting, what do? We run to God. God, hey, this is on my mind and I'm panicking because you know what? I'm going to try to give it to you and
Try.
I'm going to sit here and worry about it the whole time.
Yeah.
And keep praying and praying and praying as though you have not answered any single prayer before.
Doesn't it say to leave it at the altar?
I
Yeah,
actually,
put it at the cross.
I seen a reel the other day, and forgive me, I'm going to move around a little bit. Okay, so we got this and steady, and this is what the guy, am I still coming through all right?
Yeah.
This is what the guy said. He's like, this is what we do. It's like, God, we're going to lay this at your feet, and you know, I'm going to leave it to you. And you see where we won't let it go.
Right.
You know, we keep our hand on it. And I'm going to couple that with another thing that I ran across. And it said, how was it worded? You can pray or you can worry, but you can't do both.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to pray, then you're giving it to God. If you're giving it to God, then you don't have anything to worry about.
It's like the one foot in, one foot out type deal.
Yeah.
okay, God, I'm gonna give it to you, but I'm gonna hold on to it.
Right. But I'm going to stand here and watch to see what you do.
Yeah, that reminds me of a video I once watched in Celebrate Recovery called Baggage. You know, you keep on picking all this stuff up, and you're asking God to help you with it, but you keep on picking it back up, and it leads into you got this whole big bag full of baggage
weighing you down.
And when you let go of everything, just let God have it all.
Yeah.
Talk about the release of pressure.
One of the
it's like taking your socks off.
one of the more powerful messages, a church I used to attend, he had a cross built out of, I'm going to say they were 2x10s or 2x12s, easily 10 foot high. And the pastor would put on, you know, he would do his own Easter program where he drug that cross in the church, which he did a really good job with it. But when the cross was not being used, either he decided or the church decided, it's irrelevant, but we left the cross up on display. And there was one message where he passed out little pieces of paper or might have been already waiting there. I don't remember. But he said, whatever's on your mind today, be it a sin, be it a concern, be it a worry. Went up there and nailed it on the cross.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, that's what we are supposed to do with it. You nail it to the cross.
We've done that.
You know, and you want to talk about like bawling like a little girl.
Oh,
you know, I mean, it's you know, that man card goes right out the window.
I lost that a long time ago.
It's weird how the faith does that also, isn't it?
It don't take much to get me teared up anymore when it comes to thinking about God and faith.
It really depends on the circumstances. Like I said,
certain worship songs, it just
yes, that's honestly the second reason why I fairly well refuse to sing and worship. You know, now I'll play, and it's not that reason number one is my singing's terrible. But
it's not a joyful noise.
Noise. It's noise. But it's too personal for me. I can't just sing a song to sing a song. All right. If I'm not feeling it, skip. Period. Now, I have no problem playing any, you know, at the church I attend now, I don't pick the songs. Whatever gets sent out, I might have an opinion one way or the other, but for the most part, I do what I'm asked to do.
Yeah.
Or whatever I think works, you know. But as far as singing, when I am worshiping personally, it's too personal. I'll start squalling.
Yeah.
You know, like I get choked up, and it's honestly one of the things that, as far as worship goes, I think most churches need to get back to is when you have a worship team, and don't get me wrong, I mean no disrespect, no nothing. It's you know, a lot of churches don't have a whole lot of talent, so it is what it is, and that's what you get.
Yeah.
Other churches have people that do have abilities that might be, shall we say, above average. Use those, and that's fine. That's great. Like I said, I'm not opposed to any of that, but we need to worry less about, well, did it sound good? You know, my voice cracked a little bit there. I need to push. You need to make it genuine. You need to make it real. You need to make it raw. You're not up there to lead worship, to entertain. You need to be in a state of worship if you are going to lead others in worship. And if it's not, maybe I look at things different. Actually, I know I look at things differently. But I can't sit out in the congregation and appreciate a worship service because I'm pulling apart everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I like what they did here. I don't know if I would have done that. And it's not from a judgment standpoint.
Right.
You know, it's simply analytical, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. But at the same point in time, if I'm out in the congregation and I look up there, I can see on your face whether or not I think you believe what you're saying or not. And if I don't believe what you're saying, it's like this. If you can't convince me that you believe what you're saying, how are you going to convince me to believe what you're saying?
Could that be another demonic thing?
I don't know
Not
if
within,
it's
not within yourself, but within the building or the praise team or.
it is. I'm not going to say no, because there's so many churches out there that there very well could be, you know, some kind of demonic sabotage going on. It might be coming from uh, the certain aspect of church leadership that, hey, we have to do it this way, not that way. And um, I know everybody likes doing things their way. I like doing things my way, and I'm not disputing that. But I recall running across a passage where Jesus told them that your traditions are killing you.
I can see that.
Worship needs to be spirit led and spirit filled. Now, usually when I say something that people don't like, they latch on to a bunch of things that I didn't say. Well, it doesn't need to be chaos. I never said it needed to be chaos.
No.
You know, I never said that there shouldn't be some sort of order to it. I never said that, you know, one thing that a lot of people don't like about contemporary music is that it's very repetitive.
Yeah, slow.
Oh yeah, yeah. You get into the verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, bridge, chorus, bridge, chorus.
Sometimes the hymnals is what we need.
Sometimes it is, and you need somebody in the worship team that's also in a, shall we say, even if they're just all they lead is the worship team. You need somebody there who is attuned to the spirit, but also to the crowd.
Yes.
You can't do the whole, hey, this is our format. We start here, we stop there, and we're done. That's not spirit led.
No.
But you have to be able to read the crowd and know when to quit. But you also need to know when to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, and
if the spirit's in the room and you can feel it, don't stop.
Right. If there's somebody up there on their face pouring their heart out, if you stop or change songs,
it's done.
Yeah.
Like you know, we've attended a church where the worship leader just stands there just strumming the guitar and singing, and he's not doing nothing to engage with the congregation. And in my experience, I feel like he should engage with the congregation, make them raise their hands and worship.
It really depends.
Or whatever.
It really depends, and not, since I haven't personally witnessed what you're discussing. I'm not going to say something that might come across in judgment. That worship leader might be scared to death to be up there in front of people.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I would cut them slack on that.
Maybe.
Because I don't like being up there in front of people.
I can tell.
I mean, I really don't. I'll stare.
That's why you're in the back.
I would be back behind the stage, if I could get a line of sight to my drummer and whoever's singing, I would rather, you know, pay no attention to the guitar player behind the curtain, you
Don't
know.
worry about them.
Yeah, like don't even look at me. I'm not there.
Of course, I know it's not about them. It's about you and God. I know that.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, but no.
That whole "bless me if you can" concept makes things a little difficult too for the worship leader,
Well,
preacher, whoever.
Right.
Which I think leads to another demonic oppression through the Mark 5.
Right. Well, the downside I'm actually typing out a thing. I sent y'all part of it the other day. I'm not arguing that there isn't demon oppression, because there is. But one of the problems that we as believers have, we also have a lack of accountability.
Yeah.
When something doesn't go our way, it's the devil trying to stop me, or, anything that comes up, like we've read that verse and we really hold on to, we fight not against flesh and blood, but the powers and principality. We don't realize a lot of times the demon we're facing is us.
Yeah.
We stand in our own way. We cripple ourselves, like it's not the devil, it's you, that like there's a meme that floats around, says something like, y'all out here thinking you're battling demons when all it is accountability and the consequences of your actions, and there's a lot of times that's right. The Bible never says God's going to bless every single thing you do and every move you make,
If God bless everything we did, I mean, but that wouldn't make it fair.
Well,
I mean, it does.
Think about it for a second. If we could narrow down our choices and behaviors where we never operated in sin, I could understand that, but how often are we doing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons?
Yeah.
Let me throw a stick in there. How often are we doing the right thing for the wrong reasons? We are supposed to love one another, but how often are we showing charity because we want recognition, or we want somebody to say thank you, or, hey, you owe me a favor now? Well, that's not charity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's so much that, a lot of times what we think is demonic is really us.
Right.
And I'm not saying that it can't be demonic, but a lot of times it's not. Well, the devil made me do it. Well, why are you listening to him? I mean, I believe it's in John, either in the Gospel of John or in one of the Johns. He tells us that the devil has dominion over what we call this world.
Yeah.
But with Christ's sacrifice, the devil has no power or authority that we do not grant him. The devil is not, I'm going to get the words messed up, omnipotent, omnipresent, and I can't remember.
All the
omniscient. Yeah, that too many syllables there.
Yeah.
But he's not everywhere, all knowing. If you're listening, if the devil made you do it, why are you listening to him? Why are you talking to him?
Right.
If you're speaking with the devil, you need to be telling him to go back to hell where he came from and to leave you alone, because you have authority over him through Christ. It's really that simple. You don't go around and burn sage. That just makes the house smell funny. Stand in authority.
That's a demonic thing itself, isn't it?
It really is.
I thought so.
It's
witchcraft.
Technically, yes. And a lot of people are not going to like this. Stop checking your dang horoscope.
Oh, that's the worst one.
That's divination.
That's like freaking the Ouija board.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, there are people who they will not use a Ouija board because they know it's demonic. But look up their horoscope every morning. They run their numerology charts once a year. When somebody's doing a crystal ball gazing or a tarot reading, like, you are eating different flavors of the same dang thing. I can't remember where it talked about such things. I know it's in one of the prophets. Does that sound right? Where he talks about witchcraft and divination and all of that. Don't do it. Read your Bible, It's and don't get me wrong, there's certain aspects. I've read my horoscope before. There are times that, okay, it sounds accurate enough to get your attention.
Yeah.
I actually had a numerology chart run. It surprised me. It wasn't, they're just vague enough. If you're sitting there naked in a beanbag chair eating Cheetos, yeah, it's not that specific, but it's so close. But every perversion of religion has kernels of truth in it. There are tenets of Islam that we would agree with.
Yeah.
There are statutes of Hinduism that Christians would agree with. But that doesn't mean it's all the same. Spaghetti has tomatoes in it. So does chili. They are not one and the same.
No. Don't put macaroni in the chili either.
Well, I've seen people do that. I've seen people put spaghetti in chili.
Chili.
And the thing about it is, like I pick up all kinds of useless knowledge and whatnot. And there is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is what you know. Wisdom is how well you know it. For instance, knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing you don't put it in a fruit salad.
Tomatoes are... Thought it was a veggie.
So does a lot of people,
Is that another demonic thing?
No, I think the demonic comes in with Brussels sprouts.
Oh, those are good. Those are good. A lot of butter.
I remember a story of my dad tells this story. At one point, he went into his parents' house and he said there was this god awful smell. And he's, Daddy, what are you eating? All of a sudden, that's broccoli. Can you smell that? Well, yeah. You dip it through that cheese. He's like, eat it without the cheese and see if you still feel the same way. You're just eating the broccoli to hold the cheese. If it smells that bad, why would you eat it? And honestly, I feel the same about a lot of things. And don't get me wrong. If you like vegetables, great. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. Sauerkraut stinks.
She just says fruit.
Yeah, see? My whole life was a lie.
I was saw 6 foot ones. Come on now.
Really?
Yeah, I was. The convenience store on 8th Street.
There you go. Yeah.
So Mark 5, Luke 8, and Matthew.
I've got it some here.
Was Matthew 8, was it?
That sounds right. If I can get it to pull up. Yeah, Matthew 8.
8:29.
I got messages from
is it Luke 8 also?
Luke 8 also, and Mark 5.
Yeah. So they're all the same similar stories. Mark threw me off. No, Mark's the right one. Matthew threw me off when he said something about having the 2 demons. And either way, God cured him, told him to tell the world, or he told him not to tell the world. There was somebody he told not to tell.
Depending on which story, I want to say that gentleman, he told to tell him. Huh?
Is that when he healed a little girl?
Shortly thereafter.
Yeah. It amazes me that these people had so much faith.
Right.
That they followed him. Why did they be around him? And I feel like that goes with today's society.
And the Mark, he told the demon-possessed man to go home and tell your own people what the Lord has done for you.
Yeah.
Now, I know the woman at the well, he told her not to tell anyone, and, she went and told everybody.
Yeah. I think it falls, I think you said something about this last time or a couple times ago, whatever. We'll go to a concert and we'll hoot and holler. Actually, I think B-Way said that, or Chris did.
A lot of people do. Yeah, we give more excitement to a football game than we do to Jesus.
Yeah, we'll go to whatever, and when we go to church Sunday morning, we're sitting there and we might move a little bit, shake our hands, but
most time we're just stretching.
Yeah, and we're trying to compete with the person beside us because they're making you feel out of place.
Right.
You know, I'm not the perfect person by all means,
Well, nobody
but I do
is.
worship God. I do talk to
Right.
God every day, and I feel like if more people would do that, we would have less hate.
I know, again, everybody's got their own thought, theory, and interpretation.
Yeah.
I've been to several churches that, they have broken from tradition. When worship service starts, there's no interruption.
Right.
You have worship. You don't stop to read announcements. You don't do baptisms. You don't take roll. You don't, when worship starts, you worship. All right. There's no interruptions. They also many times dim the lights.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that a lot of people don't like that because it appears that you're putting on a concert. The problem is that is the appearance. People are more apt to worship when they think people can't see them. So a lot of that sitting there and not moving or whatever, a lot of that is people feeling self-conscious, or they don't sing because they don't want the person beside them to hear them. Well, if everybody in there was wearing blinders, nobody would care.
Yeah.
So like I said, there's a lot of different theories on the subject, but yeah, I'm not opposed to hymns. There are some really good ones.
Yeah.
One of the problems with hymns is that church music tends to sound very much like church music. For people who were raised in the church, people who have been in the church for years, a lot of them prefer hymns.
Yeah.
But baby Christians, newborns who have not been in the church all their life, that's going to tend to sound like church music.
Yeah.
People have different opinions on it. And, some really stress hymns, some really stress contemporary. And my thing is, you need to serve your congregation. You need to do whatever type of music which glorifies God, yes, but brings people to a state of worship and praise.
And brings them to Jesus.
If that's hymnals, fine. If that's contemporary, fine. We done the B. Wade concert. We were there. He did the B. Wade concert.
Yeah, we were there attending.
Right.
He did a good job.
He did. And the thing about it is that he is a Christian rapper. Not everybody likes rap.
No.
But he's reaching an audience that hymnals will not reach.
Correct.
And, we as Christians, we need to put our own, we shouldn't sacrifice what modicum of righteousness we have to please the crowd. No. But we need to put our personal preferences aside and realize, that what we respond to might not work on somebody else.
Right.
And we need to be mature enough to understand that whether we like it or not. I tend to play things with a more classic rock sound feel to them or whatever. Not that I won't play hymnals or whatever, but I also have a bad habit about doing a hymnal where it doesn't sound like a hymnal, if that makes sense. Like I said, some people like that, some people don't. For me, it's one way or the other, but we can't make ourselves the standard, if that makes sense.
It's not about us, it's about God.
Well, not only that, but hey, we need to go out and reach people the way I want to.
Yeah, not the way God wants to. Yeah.
Right. And that's the point I'm making is, B Wade does what B Wade does. He is reaching people that I don't think hymnals will touch.
No.
And it's the same thing. I brought up prison ministers. There are so many people that their concern is getting people in the church. You need to be going out and being the church, because them inmates aren't going to come to church.
Jesus was
They
getting on.
can't.
No.
You
Bring the
know.
church to them.
Right.
And this is like, and the biggest thing is not about us, it's about God. Be Jesus skin on. And don't do it your way, do it his way.
Right.
The Bible tells you to.
Well, the thing about it is, and I've had trouble with this. There's a passage, I don't remember, I want to say it's in Matthew, I might be wrong, where Jesus says in red, whatever you ask of the Father, it will be given. Now, I've had a hard time with that one because I have asked and not received what I prayed for. Or at least not in the manner by which I asked for it.
Yeah.
So there's been instances where that has taken a sledgehammer to my faith.
Yep.
We need to understand that there are other passages out there that tell you to constantly set your eyes on Christ, to align yourself with the Word of God. Because if what you want is what God wants, you will get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But we don't like to do that part. We're like, God, I'm trying to be a Christian. I need you to bless me like this.
Do what you can.
We don't want to, we've got too much of the world in us. We want to do things our way with his approval and blessing.
Well,
and how stupid is that?
It's just like praying and picking it back up.
Right.
I'll leave it at the altar, like there's a few things that I have struggled with in the past. And the quicker I learned to leave it there, like anger.
Yeah.
I believe I may have had a Jezebel spirit too. Porn is this. I would pray about him taking it from me, and not 2 minutes later, I'm on the phone trying to find.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and the stupid thing is, a while back ago, our current pastor, he brought up, it's like, have you seen some of the content on them reels? And I didn't think a whole lot about it at the time. And then I started, and I've had a buddy bring it up. He's like, that's all that pulls up on my phone. And I'm thinking, well, a lot of that is supposed to be set up by an algorithm. And I'll admit, there was some of that caught my attention. Click, what are we looking? Oh, no.
Oh, nope, yep.
But you've already clicked it.
Yeah, so now it's there.
And I'm honestly of the opinion that you don't even have to click it. If you are doom scrolling and you watch it over a certain period of time,
3 seconds, I think,
something like that.
Yeah.
But I've started, I was curious on how this worked. And, there was a period of time where I had looked at such things. Well, you can't continue doing that. So went through, deleted the search history, got to where if anything even questionable came up on the reels, skip, get rid of all that stuff. And there was a time where I really wasn't seeing, occasionally, but not with the frequency. And and then it's like it came back in a cycle. It's like, hang on, where did all this crap come from? Because I haven't searched, I haven't clicked, So yeah, I don't know exactly how all that stuff works, other than it's not simply algorithm, because if you're not clicking on it, it shouldn't be there.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with the devil.
He
knows you're doing the good thing, watching the good stuff. The people praying, the people reading the Bible, the lives. Like my TikTok has turned into a lot of stuff about Charlie Kirk and
right,
Lecrae, and Christianity stuff, and every once in a while I'll see a TikTok of a girl, and I'm like, oh, and I'll show my
Right.
wife, look, it wasn't on purpose. It's just
Right,
there
right.
because I should not look at any other woman but my wife like that.
Well, in that aspect, yeah.
And you know, it says in the Bible too that's not something else is demonic. I think they call it the Jezebel spirit.
Well, there's different interpretations for that one because there is a certain amount of sexuality there.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that the Jezebel spirit was more of a controlling spirit.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm not well versed on a lot of historical things, you know. When you go through the Old Testament and it brings up the Ashtara poles, and occasionally it'll say something about Baal or whatever his name is or whatever. And then what is it? The person's had Marduk, I think. And you know, the scripture just brings that up as though you already know what they're talking about. I've run across, you know, now I don't wholeheartedly agree with anything everybody says, you know, like I don't even agree with myself half the time.
That's
but
the best advice you ever gave.
I want to say it's Jonathan Cain, maybe.
I remember that name.
Well, he's wrote some prophetic styled books. And I've read a couple. I'm not trying to knock them down in any way, but he does seem to be more of a Hebrew historical scholar. And I might be wrong. I might have the wrong person altogether, but I want to say it was him where he was brought up. It's like, no, this goddess was Egyptian. She could change her gender, ate babies, or he went on to, you know, like this is how she was depicted back in the day. And we're seeing that now. So there are some of these individuals that have studied religious beliefs or whatever the case, you know, like the Babylonians and the Phoenicians and the Persians and whatnot. They have studied all this and gone through all the writings where they are versed enough to know, like, no, this was a god or goddess or whatever celebrated at this time. And it looked like this, and this is what we're doing now. And when Solomon wrote, I believe it's in Ecclesiastes, might be Lamentations, there is nothing new under the sun. He's correct.
Yeah.
Anything that you could call evil or wrong or immoral or demonic or whatever that is taking place today has already taken place in some time in the future. Now, let's not get stupid about it. Charlie Kirk was shot with a firearm on a university campus. That did not take place 5,000 years ago.
Right.
But people getting killed for their beliefs did.
Yeah.
That, you know, the idea is not new.
At one point in time, it was against the law to pray and worship back in the day.
Depending, you know.
As on the Radical, I think names the book.
Well, you know, depending on where, like, there are areas of the Islam world today where if you do not support Islam and the Prophet, you're in a death sentence.
Yeah.
If you are found in possession of a Bible, you have a death sentence. You know, now I know that there's going to be people's like, nuh-uh. Do your research.
Yep.
You know, I didn't say every place that celebrates Islam. There are places, you know. When we look back at, you know, like I brought up Marduk or whatever, when we look up where the Israeli exiles were in Babylon, the time of Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and all that, yeah, they really issued the decree. You cannot pray to anybody but the image of, you know, this is not anything new.
No.
You know, we have so many people here in the States today that anytime you bring up faith in a government building, a school, an office, a teacher, anything. They say separation of church and state. They need to go back and look up and read what that means.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people's like, no, there should be no, nothing that even resembles religion to do with anything that has to do with the state or the government. I'm like, there was an approved version of the Bible that the Senate commissioned.
Yep.
The very first Congress opened under prayer. People who go around talking about separation of church and state do not understand what it means. Congress is not to establish any religion. They cannot come out and say, we are all Protestant or Catholic or Buddhist, or they cannot simply say this is, or they can't make one up either. Mm-hmm. But Congress, by law, by Constitution, cannot come out and say, we are this religion and you're going to celebrate it or follow it. They can't do that. That's separation of church and state. The other aspect of it is they cannot put a church authority as far as pope, minister, whatever. You go back, we're all familiar with the Robin Hood story,
yeah,
and whatnot. In that time period, not the fictional Robin Hood, but in the real time period, Norman invasion of England and whatnot, the church and the crown technically were separated, but were not. There was a lot of let me rephrase that. There was a lot of crown offices held by the church. We've all watched Braveheart, that was the church that was executing William Wallace at the end. That wasn't the crown. That was the church doing it on the crown's behalf. Because there was a faction of history, and this really came out of the French around the Crusades, that if you was a king, it was divine providence. God put you there. And it don't matter if you beheaded the previous king, and that's how you got king. It was God ordained, because if God didn't ordain it, he wouldn't have allowed it to happen. You take all of those stories and bring it to 1760s, 1770s United States. That's where the separation of church and state comes from. The church is not a governing body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The state cannot establish a religion, and the church cannot manage the government, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the separation of church and state. It says nothing about, well, I'm a school teacher and I have religious beliefs, so, I can't pray at school or I'll go to jail. That is not separation of church. I don't care what the courts have said since then.
No.
We recently had a congressperson say, just because you commit a crime doesn't mean you're a criminal. There are poorly educated people saying ridiculous things, and occasionally it gets signed into law or made out in a court case or whatever the case may be. But learn your history, and that's where I'm at with it. Learn your history. Getting back to the Matthew and Mark and everything. So we talked about the woman with the issue of blood.
Yeah, the little girl.
Well, do you want to get into the one that got raised from the dead, or?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That might be the next episode.
Yeah, because I've done a lot of.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's generally what I do.
That's why it's called a podcast. But yeah, I didn't really forget about it. It just slipped my mind because I was so intrigued with the whole. One book said one person, one next book said two people, two demons.
Well, there's a few things like that in the scriptures. When we talk about where Jesus fed the masses, one account says that there was 5,000 people there.
Yeah.
One account says there was 7,000 people there. I think there was one account that said it was like 2 fish and 5 pieces of bread, and there was another one where it was kind of backwards. The thing about it is the number of fish and the number of loaves of bread isn't important. Whether it was 5,000 people or 7,000 people. Now, keep in mind, one of the accounts said that there was 5,000 men. That doesn't count women and children. So that might be where 7,000 came from.
Right.
But because the way the stories are depicted, we don't know if there wasn't 2 separate events.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know the Bible is God's word. It's just, I had 3 Bibles open on the table today, and then I had my phone, and just like, you want mine? You can read mine. I'm like, I got enough here.
Like, I've got 4 Bibles and 2 eyes. What do you want me to do?
But it's crazy what God will do for you when you're reading His Word, and He'll teach you, like, the Bible app on a phone. It's convenient, but like our pastor said, Chris or Greg Locke, the physical book is good.
Mm-hmm.
Because it keeps you away from the electronics.
Right.
And I'm excited about going to church tomorrow. I'll tell you that right now.
Good. Need to be. We all need to be.
We've prayed about it, and we have our home church, and we're going to have
Right.
a local church also. It's good to be around other church people.
It is.
Yes, we're together, and we are technically doing church.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different feeling when you're in with the preacher or the band.
Well,
whatever you say. I mean, we can have a band here if we wanted to,
right,
or play music, whatever. But it's just, we decided that we need to get back into the routine of Sunday being.
Well, and I've made the same excuses that other people have made. Hey, as long as I read my Bible, and where 2 or more gather in my name,
yeah.
I've made those same excuses. And it's not that those are specifically wrong. It's just there's more to it than that. No, we are not commanded specifically, not to my knowledge. I might have to go back and reread. It doesn't say, no, you have to go to this church in this building. No, right. It doesn't say that.
Just 2 or more.
But there's more than enough scripture in there that does reinforce the idea of being surrounded in the local body of believers.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to isolate yourself wholly in the gospel. There is a time to go to your prayer closet and study and meditate and whatnot. The scripture never says to stay that way all the time. You need to be with the body of believers also.
Yeah.
There might be one of them there that needs you. You might need them.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that hiding.
And I will tell you also, if God tells you to talk to somebody, you better do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't argue with them. Like, here recently I've been arguing with God about talking to some individuals that I know in a facility that I go to daily. I'm trying to find a way.
A way will present itself. Yeah. One thing it got me, I'm going to vaguely bring up an instance because, like I said, my goal here isn't to throw anybody under the bus. There was an instance where, in a situation of worship, a worship member's like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I open my mouth, the Spirit speaks, blah, blah, blah. Preacher doesn't want this to happen. What do I do? I'm like, you do what God tells you to do.
Yeah.
Well, the pastor, I'm like, hold on. I was like, now you got to do I'm not telling you what to do. You've got to do what you feel is right. But what goes through my head, when we get to that period of judgment, when God is standing there, why didn't you say what I told you to say?
Right.
Well, the pastor, I'm not asking the pastor. I'm asking
You.
why didn't you say what I told you to say? What are you going to tell him?
I'm gonna be nervous.
I don't think I'll be able to, I hope you can't crap your pants at that point, because I probably will.
I just see it now. Start stuttering and just being all over yourself. Like, I got no response. Sorry. It's like talking to mom and dad.
What response could we possibly have?
Exactly. Like, he told me to do something, I didn't do it.
Well, and I feel that same way, about, say, the atheist or the agnostic. You don't get a different set of rules. Like us
No.
Christians don't get to go meet God, and y'all go into nothingness.
Yeah.
And you also don't get a free pass.
No.
You're going to have to answer to God too. And I don't say this, to spark fear or doom and gloom. I'm trying to look at this from my own perspective. Excuse me. What are you going to tell the Almighty when he asks for an accountant of your life? Are you going to say, well, there wasn't enough evidence to convince me? He's going to point at every other believer that was convinced and ask what your problem is.
Yeah.
Is that a legitimate excuse?
I spoke to an atheist once, if I remember right. He said
I've spoke to quite a few.
Something about scientific or something. I forget what he said. We might have to get him on the podcast and just interview him.
That could be fun.
It would be fun. We might have to do it. Let him stay at his house.
Well, the thing about it is that I have
Bring him to
no
church.
problem with open debate. That's one of the things I loved about Charlie. Hey, ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
What is that other gentleman? Cliff Nietzsche or whatever his name is, older gentleman that does the same thing on college campuses.
Yeah. I think his last name's hard to pronounce.
Right. But you know what I'm talking about, slightly older gentleman.
Yeah.
Or older than us.
Yeah.
Whether it be from a religious aspect or any aspect of society, you have to have open debate. You have to have that conversation. When that conversation stops is when violence and resentment come in. There are a lot of things that I disagree. I have no problem with science. A lot of my problem is the scientific community. If you bring up a topic like, well, I'm not convinced. Well, it's a closed subject anyway. It's settled science. I'm like, there's no such thing as settled science. That is one of the most unscientific things you could say, is that it's settled. Because there was a point in time where we knew the number of stars. There was a point in time where we knew that the sun revolved around the earth. There was a point in time where you could sail off the end of the planet.
Yeah.
All of that has changed. There have been things that got brought up, 5 years ago, that have been since disproved. Don't tell me science is settled. If you can't questioning science is how science is done. If you can't question it, you have a religion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Speaking of that, I think I saw something on Facebook. It's one of those Christian pages that said that the 26th of this month is when God's coming back.
Occasionally, there have been people that have made different claims and whatnot about when is it going to be, and you can tell from the signs and this and that. Christ's own word says no one knows when the master of the house comes except the Father. Christ himself doesn't know when he's coming back.
No.
He will come back when God the Father says it's due. Now, we can get a better understanding of the times that we live in based on what Scripture tells us. The biggest problem that we have, especially where prophecy is concerned, is we will read something and we will look and like, oh my God, that's a sign and this is going to happen next. and then next doesn't happen because a lot of the prophecies are so vague. And I think God gave us some of these prophecies so that we could be aware.
Yeah.
Not so that we could do divination. The simple truth is, that there are some but most aspects of prophecy, we don't know that was the prophecy until after it's fulfilled.
Right.
And unfortunately, that is simply the nature of it. We get in trouble when we try. Now, Scripture never says you're going to be able to figure this out. It says to be aware.
Yeah.
And I think some of us spend so much time, whatever the case may be, trying to narrow down or get an idea. And there's always the debate. Well, is there a pre-trib rapture, a post-trib? You know what? Don't worry about it. You do what you're supposed to do with God and you be obedient. And, you can hope for one and be prepared for the other. Period. It's the same thing with, what was that gentleman's name? Kent Hovind's been going around for years.
Mm-hmm.
Young Earth, 6,000 years. He might be right. I don't know. And then you've got all these other people. It's like, well, what about this 327 bazillion years? You know what? God made Adam. Adam was not born, and he didn't start out as a baby. God made Adam with age.
Yep.
Could he have done the same thing with the God can do whatever God wants to do, period. My faith does not hinge on the age of the planet, if that makes sense.
Right.
And it's the same thing, Well, I've seen these signs and wonders and whatnot, and well, I thought the end was here. Well, the end's been here since the beginning.
Right.
The simple truth is Jesus said, I am coming back at the end of the age. That'll be whenever God decides, period.
Yep.
I don't know a better answer than that.
That'd be definitely another good podcast. Talk about the end of times and the rapture.
Right.
Don't know that'd be the next one, but we definitely will get into that. So we touched about the lady that bled. Now we're going to talk about not today, to the next story. Is that what he said? I don't remember what he said.
Talk about Paul Harvey?
Yeah.
Oh, now the rest of the story.
So
you know what makes me sick? Some of y'all aren't going to be old enough for that.
Yeah. Who's Paul Harvey? Just Google it. Anyways, we definitely will get the last half of Mark 5 and probably dig into something a little bit other than that. Next podcast will be next Saturday. We do have our website up and running. It's on our Facebook. We have a website, Spotify, YouTube. And now we have TikTok.
Yeah.
We are trying to reach as many people as we can. We're, like we said before, we're not about the likes and everything else. We just want people to join us and learn about God. That's all we want.
Yeah.
If you go to our website and you go to the bottom of the page, you hit, I think it's subscriber. I don't remember exactly what it said. Put your email in. You're going to get weekly devotions, welcome letter. We're still learning what all we can do with this website, but I should say we, but my wife is figuring out because I'm busy working.
Right.
And she has more time than I do. But we are doing this stuff together, decision-wise. What do you think about this, that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's all coming together. God is definitely blessing it in all aspects of the podcast. I'm hoping, we got 3 months left of the year. I'm hoping we have at least 100 people that have liked our page and have watched our podcast and interacted with us, and maybe hopefully have a guest.
At some point, I think we should.
Maybe a pastor, maybe B. Wade.
Yeah, someone to either chat with us or maybe give their testimony or whatever the case may be, like I said, the whole argumentative aspect of, say, bringing on an atheist or whatnot, I'm not opposed to the debate. I'm really not. I'm
I'm
just
more
not
curious.
entirely sure if that's the forum we want the podcast to be in.
Yeah.
But again, that's
I'm more
we'll
curious
let
as
God
to
do
what
it.
the thinking is, the thought process.
Um,
I know every atheist is different. The couple that I know, like matter of fact, one we know he goes to church every Sunday.
Weird. Why?
Don't know.
Um,
I mean, he's hearing the word every Sunday, and that's a good thing. I'm not knocking it. I'm just curious as to what the thinking is.
For my understanding, a certain amount of atheism, if you was raised in like atheists will say this of people with faith. Well, if your parents were Christian, then, that's part of your upbringing. You can make the same argument for atheism.
Yeah.
So there are some that were raised with a genuine againstness of things religion.
Right.
Fine. There are some that might have been raised with it, but either it wasn't practiced, so there was no relevance to it, or it was over practiced, which drove the individual away. But once you eliminate those aspects, a lot of the people that would claim to be atheists today once had some sort of faith or belief, and now they carry church hurt.
Yeah.
Either someone in the church hurt them,
Yep.
A family member, a friend, something happened that broke their trust, and it's made them turn on all things faith.
Really, yeah.
I
heard for people like that too.
Maybe they lost a loved one.
Yeah.
God,
they say God did it. They blame God for everything. I've heard that too.
I've seen so much of that. I've seen where people will say, well, there's certain aspects of faith I like. I just don't know about a whole creator God. I'm really more agnostic than anything. And again, my thing is that, I don't mean to put this in such simplistic terms, but as a Christian, if we are wrong, we'll never know. If nothing happens when you die other than you die and you cease being, as a Christian, we will, and the atheist won't know either.
No.
If there is nothing, past this point, we will never know. And we won't even get the chance to say, I told you so, or whatever. But if the Christian worldview is correct, we will have an accounting.
Yep.
All right. And people will ask, well, why would God send me to hell? I lived a good life. According to scripture, nobody has lived a righteous life. Mm-hmm. But you're also injecting your own thoughts into it. God does not send people to hell. People send people to hell.
Yep.
All you have to do is accept Christ. Honestly, wholeheartedly accept Christ.
And leave it there. Don't just
leave
it at the altar.
You can't,
I did it.
Yeah, you can't take it on as an insurance policy. No. It's kind of like the Matrix. You have to choose red pill or blue pill. You have to make a choice.
Yep.
You can't keep straddling the fence, and you can't, what was that character in The Mummy? He had like a medallion around his neck for like every religion at the time.
Yeah.
You can't play it like a insurance policy. So there will come a point in time where, we're standing before God, and what are you going to say? I've got church hurt.
Yep.
It
was your fault, God.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of it's going to be is, one of the best arguments I've ever seen. And don't get me wrong, I get it. One of the things that drives, shall we say, non-believers away is all the pain and suffering in the world.
Yeah.
If there was a God who was all-knowing and cared, why doesn't he do something about all the pain and suffering in the world? The problem is free will, but y'all aren't ready for that conversation.
No.
The best argument I ever heard, this guy says, okay, either there's no God or there is a God, but he doesn't care. That's why there's all this pain and suffering in the world. Take God out of the equation. You don't believe in God because there's pain and suffering. Okay, so let's say there is no God. Has the pain and suffering left?
Nope.
No.
Still there.
Then whose fault is it?
Right. It's human.
Yeah, well, it's either human's fault or nobody's fault.
Yeah.
So it's only God's fault if he exists? Really?
Yeah. I mean,
they
gotta have somebody to blame it on. Why not God?
I had a conversation with somebody who, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I hate to say it, but I think they had demons. But we were having a conversation, and I was listening to the individual, and they said something, and the way it was worded, I'm like, hold on a second. Let me see if I understand you. You don't believe that there's a God because if there is a God, he would have stopped you from doing some of the stupid crap that you've done. Yes. At which point did you ever listen to God and not yourself? Did you read the word? Did you try to apply it to your life? Did you follow the tenets? Do this, don't do that. Like all them commandments that you say are evil and man-made and are just trying to control you.
Yep.
Did you attempt to do any of that? No. So you did what you thought was best, and you wanted God to make it all okay. Cool. And if you was doing something stupid, he would have stopped you, but you've already determined that you don't listen. And you want to blame God for this.
Yep.
Or, well, he doesn't exist because I did something stupid and he should have stopped me. Like, are you out of your mind? And of course, for this individual, I'm going to go with yes. But, and I don't mean disrespect. I say things meant as a joke, and people don't have a sense of humor. What's that thing? Certain things are acquired taste. If you don't like me, go acquire some taste.
Yep.
But in all actuality, I'm not trying to talk the individual down. It's just such statements from an intellectual level. I'm like, really? Like, I don't understand the thought process behind it. There must not be a God, because if there was, he would have stopped me from doing something stupid. Did you listen to him? No. Then what was he going to do? Smack you with a baseball bat?
I didn't even blame him for that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's a lose-lose scenario. There's no way around it. You just, like I said, on this particular instance, I do strongly believe that there was some demonic stuff.
Oh, we'll definitely leave that at the end of the podcast. And also, I wanted to mention that the other atheist that I knew, he said God made him that way.
Weird.
Huh. So we will touch on that on the next episode of what he meant by that. We're glad that you came here tonight and listened to us rant and rave and discuss biblical prospects and go cross-eyed.
It all looks good from over here.
We will definitely be live next Saturday, same time, sometime between 6:15 and 6:30.
Same Table Talk time, same Table Talk channel.
Until the next time. We thank y'all for joining us. We definitely be praying for everybody. Y'all definitely pray for us that we continue reaching people through the podcast. And, we don't just do the podcast. We do it on a daily basis also,
Pray for the nation.
Yes.
I'm not Like I said, I'm not that individual I'm not doing that whole both sides argument. I'm not, you know, l- look outside your circle. Look, I mean, I know that the news is garbage and
Definitely.
what we see on social media is garbage. I get all that, but the nation is hurting,
Yes.
in different ways. It's not just the Charlie thing. We need Jesus. And I don't say that from a condescending standpoint. I need Jesus.
Yes, we all do.
So it's not from a point of judgment that I'm saying that. But pray for this nation, because it's, I mean, wow, just wow.
Definitely a praying process for sure. Because you used to think 10 years ago when we were younger, obviously, I say some weird stuff. It's definitely a different time.
I remember when Back to the Future, the first time I heard them say damn on cable TV. We weren't young, but it was pre-driver's license, and it shocked me. I'm like, you wouldn't have heard that on TV 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And when that first started, and it's not that we wasn't aware of it, and they said it in movies all the time. I'm talking about cable programming.
Yeah.
That was a big deal, But once that bridge was crossed, it went,
Viral. Yeah.
like it was not a subtle, well, there will be this sprinkling here and this little bit of, punctuation added there. It's kind of like with me with the garlic shaker, like, well, here you go.
All right, then. I guess we'll see you all next week. Have a good night and God bless.